Well, thank you for this. You are the major force in bringing back to light your mother's work, both the films and the writings. How much did you know? You were very young when she passed away in 1987. How much did you know of the work of the films? How close were you her creative process being so young?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Piermont, New York. It was filmed in Havistraw in Rockland County, and I was 12 the summer this film was made. It was her second film, and the cast and crew all lived in our house during the film. She had no money. It was really done on a shoestring, and when I see it, there are clothes in the film that were mine and my mother's, and like sheets, and so I was very. My mother worked all the time, and I saw this film when it was released when I was 13, or it never had a real release when it was shown when I was 13. And then she died 5 or 6 years later of cancer. So the film was made in 1982 and really not seen at all for like 30 years, basically. She couldn't get anyone to distribute it. The people told her these weren't real black people, and yeah.
Well, it's interesting. This is an important point, I think, that you're making, because in the mid-70s, early to mid-70s, black filmmaking had a great visibility, but it was mostly blaxploitation films that were produced by the studios: Melvin Van Peebles, Michael Schultz, Gordon Parks. And so and they were mostly urban crimes, genre crime stories. So this form of independent filmmaking that, focus on well-educated middle class, and it was really unusual.
Yeah, I always kind of, to put it in context, obviously it was before The Cosby Show, it was before Vanessa Williams, it was before, I think 1982 when this was released was the year that like Rocky and On Golden Pond, won the Academy Award. But yeah, you still don't really see black characters like this in film, but you definitely didn't then. And it's been interesting to, I had this film remastered about, 8 years ago, and really thought I was doing it just for family, and then it ended up finding this incredible audience. There was a film festival at Lincoln Center, and it was released and reviewed with incredible enthusiasm by the New Yorker and the New York Times. And so it's gone on to have this whole life. And then I published 2 unpublished books by hers. And it's one of those strange cases, really, where her work, was kind of before its time. Like, I don't think it could have been appreciated earlier. It just was too early.
But it really ties in with, certain filmmakers, the LA Rebellion, Charles Burnett, and, and then Julie Dash, he has
taught
more.
Julie.
She taught Julie at City College?
And she adored Charles Burnett. That was one of her favorite films. Killer of Sheep.
Killer of Sheep, yeah. But there is that sense of, being able to write and direct and making films that are more into what we now think of the independent cinema vein rather than commercial studio fare. So yes, she was ahead of her time, but she was within a group of very, and they all, and it's interesting because both Charles Burnett, his film Killer of Sheep struggled to be seen because it was stuck with music rights for like 10 years. And, and then and then when you see these films, they're so precious because they're beautiful. There is real filmmaking behind it. There is real art.
And Bill Gunn, the husband in the film, was a pretty well-known filmmaker himself. I can't remember Bill's last Black Picture show was Ganja and Hess.
Ganja and Hess,
and also
which Spike Lee remade recently. Yeah,
and Dwayne Jones, the caped man, was also a really well-regarded actor in that scene, and they were like family. These people were in my house all the time, and like Bill Gunn's lover, Sam Wayman, the longtime partner, was Nina Simone's brother, and it was like this whole little world. And then they all died, and my mother and Bill and Dwayne all died within a few years of each other.
Dwayne actually had an historical role in The Night of the Living Dead. He was the one black character, and the hero.
And it's so weird to see it this time, because now I'm 53, so I see different things every time, and now, because I was 12 when it was made, and now they all look so young. Like Dwayne looks so young, and when I was a kid, I was just telling John, like Billy Allen the one who plays the mother, was like an old woman, of course, to me when I was a kid, and now she's like my age in the movie. And it's just strange. But Billie Allen was an incredibly glamorous woman.
Actually, beside the fact that the film was shot in your, near your in your neighborhood, where you were, and how much of the lead character was your mother? I mean, is there anything in there? And it's just
so much so. It's really. So there's a book called Whatever Happened to Interracial Love. It's a collection of stories that my mother wrote in the early 70s and like literally put it in a drawer. Couldn't sell it, stuck it in a drawer. I didn't even know it existed until I was like 38 years old. I found it in this trunk of her stuff, this whole story collection, and I loved them. And they're all basically Sarah. They're stories about this character in her 20s. So my mother in her 20s. And she originally called the story collection Losing Ground. But I always think my mother really was a combination of the mother character and the Sarah character. She kind of had that kind of nerdy intellectual thing and then also that kind of body. It was really a mix of the two.
And the title of the film is from one of the stories, right?
The title of no, there is no story called Losing Ground. Losing Ground was just clearly a title that she was kind of obsessed with because she named her book collection that. And then because she then later made this movie, when I published the book collection, I took a different title for it. Yeah.
And there is that call, I'm on shaky ground.
I'm on shaky ground. That's exactly right. Yeah. And you know how it is with all artists. There are like certain themes that you see over and over. So that phrase losing ground shows up a few times in her work.
And the film was produced, it cost about $25,000, I think.
No, I think it was more like $140,000 over with post-production and stuff. But it was a real struggle to get the funds. Like they almost couldn't finish it. They actually got a grant from German television in the end that enabled them to finish it, weirdly.
And it was only shown on WNT and like at the local PBS station.
Yeah, it was shown at a couple film festivals. In fact, my boyfriend and I were just in Portugal, and I remember she went to a Portuguese film festival, and the time that distributors told her these weren't real black people was at a festival in Atlanta. So there were a few places that it was seen, and then before I had it restored, once or twice it played at MoMA. So it was kind of a situation where like Black intellectuals knew who my mother was. She had taught at City College, and she was actually more known as a playwright in her lifetime. She had had a couple plays, one workshopped at the Public Theater with Joe Papp, and one produced by the Women's Project, which was this theater on 55th Street, Giulia Miles. So she was kind of a playwright and a teacher. She was a professor at City College teaching film, and she made a shorter film called The Cruz Brothers and Miss Malloy, which was adapted from a short story, but that someone else wrote, and then this was her only feature.
And it's interesting because in the credits, I mean, I guess it's the destiny of a lot of independent filmmakers, but, she has editing credits, she has camera assistant credits, so clear she was...
She learned as an editor. That's how she became a filmmaker.
You raise your hand if you have,
please,
if you have questions. I don't want to monopolize. Barbara.
Thank you so much for bringing this, Giulia, Kathleen. I noticed in the credits there is a woman that I did some work with. So I'm particularly curious, you were so young when your mom died. Were there notes in her script when they went to do the preservation? How did they proceed with that project? Because I know that's very... In fact, it was Pearl Bowser who I did work with.
I remember Pearl.
So yeah, and she's still alive and worked on Oscar Michaud's work. So my question is, did your mom have any interaction with the women who were then active down in New York since you were up in Haverstraw? Like, I don't know, Jess Maple, who was making a film at the same time?
Yeah, she definitely knew Jess Maple. I mean, there are names that kind of come up for me that I just remember from childhood. In terms of notes on Losing Ground, no. Basically, when we did the restoration, we had the we had the original film, the 32 millimeter, 16 millimeter, I can't remember. And I spent like 3 weeks at DuArt in the lab where it was originally finished, and they just kind of they had me there. I mean, I don't think I was actually that helpful, but it was kind of sound and color correction. It was very moving for me because I hadn't seen the film in many years, so it was actually really hard emotionally. And then, but when I did her books, there were a lot of notes. Most of her books were really just typewritten with a lot of annotations, and it was a little bit of a difficult decision to publish them because a lot of them weren't completely finished, and I, did my best. I did some editing. I mean, I come from book publishing, so I edited and kind of put them together and hoped.
Thank goodness you did it. It's
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so much. One last question, selfishly. I noticed she did get a grant from the American Film Institute,
Yes.
right? We got a grant about the same time. Do you know what cycle it was? Was it like 1980s, 70s?
No, but I do remember the time she got a big grant. I remember her like whooping around the house. But I thought it was an NEA grant, so I don't know. Yeah. Yes.
Hi. When you were doing the restoration, was that the original music or did you add more later?
No, it's all original and it's amazing. And he's
great.
Thank you. And he's still alive. He's white. He's a composer named Michael Menard. He lives in Westchester, and he's a great guy. And I remember him very vividly. He was a kid. He was in his 20s, and he wrote all that music. My mother, they did a musical together actually, which is sometimes called Portrait of Catherine, sometimes it's called Almost Music, and that was the work that was workshopped at the Public Theater with Joe Papp. And actually, it's been written into a script by a woman named Angela Flournoy for Issa Rae, and it might actually maybe get made one day.
Issa Rae.
But so in that case, in the musical, she wrote all the lyrics so she wrote like 12 songs.
The music is really moves the story along. You know?
Thank you. There's a great article in The Nation you should look up if you Google Kathleen Collins in The Nation, and I think that's the article that really talks about the music a lot.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, that scene where Celia's dancing in the waters.
Yeah, that was a group, because Surrette Scott directed a few readings, I know.
Yes, so Surrette
yeah.
was like do you know Surrette?
Yes, I do.
Oh, so Surrette is the star of Losing Ground, and she was my mother's protege, very close. In fact, Surrette and I were in the hospital together when my mom died. She was Surrette's really family.
Yeah,
And
she was directing. She's directed a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
she became a theater director.
Yes, exactly.
And in fact, weirdly, there's a theater in Chicago that just wrote to me this week, and they want to do a play of Losing Ground, and
that would be awesome.
involved, which
Yeah,
is-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, at that time, I know they were big into it was a little after blaxploitation, it seems like, because they weren't doing the Coffee Show Really Creamy or Cleopatra Jones,
Right.
all that Shaft, all that. But good, I really loved it.
Thank you. I'm glad.
And the choreography is also quite beautiful. It has that sort of almost like classic, setting and the framing and the sense for the dance. What was your mother's relationship with film going? Was she an avid film goer?
She was. She loved. She would go to Film Forum all the time. I know you lived downtown, but she also the movies I remember her loving were things like Scarface and Purple Rain. And when she was interviewed, she would talk a lot. She got a master's at the Sorbonne, and she would talk about who's the French filmmaker? Sorry,
Eric Romer.
Eric Romer would come up a lot, and I'm trying to think of who else. Yeah, she was a big watcher of films, certainly, and of theater. And she was a huge reader. I think more than anything, it'd be easier for me to recall all the stuff she read. Like she read, Jean Le Carré and French thrillers and lots and lots of philosophy. So a lot of the books you see in here were in my house. And yeah.
Was it easy for you to? Oh, sorry. There's a question there. I don't want to.
No, she wasn't a great dancer. Who asked that question? Oh, I can't see you, but she was not a great dancer, and I'm not a great dancer. And so that line when her husband said, so the husband character is completely my father, who was actually white and kind of a horrible person. And so that line is like a funny personal line. Like I think it resonates for me and my mother. Although I just watched the Tina Turner documentary this week, which I'd never seen. And my mother loved Tina Turner and used to dance around the house to Tina. I remember when Private Dancer came out and she would dance like mad all through the house. So, but no, she didn't feel like she was a good dancer.
Was it easy for you to undertake this incredible task of getting her work out and protecting it, but also making it available to?
It's really funny. It was incredibly hard and incredibly emotional and something I avoided doing for a long time and then really almost didn't do. I'm very lucky I did. In the end, there was this young professor at Yale which is why I gave the original film to Yale. This young professor at Yale named Terry Francis, who kept calling me and saying, I need a better version of this movie to show to my students. And she said it was really moving. She was like this young black adjunct professor. She was probably around 30. And she said, when I show this film to students, Black women have never seen characters like themselves on film. You can't let this film disappear. And so it was because of Terry that I even did it, because it was like $25,000 to restore, and no one knew who she was or what the movie was. So I really didn't think I was doing it for an audience. I really thought I was just kind of doing it for her and for my family. But it's been an incredible, tonight watching it, I felt such joy. Like, I see different things every time I see it. For a long time, it just made me cry. Like, I couldn't really watch the movie. And now I don't feel that way at all. So it's an interesting, it's helped me a lot. And it's like, I feel like a different person really than I was whenever it was 10 or 15 years ago when this project started.
It's also, I mean, from just even from a historical point of view, even the views of the views of New York, the sort of the place upstate with this middle class Puerto Rican community, the relationship between the Afro American and it's so rich of detail that are not necessarily available in commercial film that need to reach a lot of audiences, so it's a movie that you keep rediscovering as you see it more and more, and now that it's available in great shape, it's a gift. Thank you, Nina.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
And thank you for letting me know about your mother and all of us, because she was one incredible woman.
Oh, thank you.
And she's got an incredible daughter.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Well, with this,
you,
one question, because I really don't know this one. Did she have any other scripts already? Any other
Yes.
things that you might be
So-
developing or?
I mean, no, I spent a bunch of years really working on this, and now I really do kind of feel like it's done. I donated her archive to the Schomburg, which is part of New York Public Library, and that's there. And there are a number of academics who have written books about her, and so there are 6 screenplays and 6 or 7 plays, and I've given permission actually to these 3 lovely young academics to do a compilation of the plays, because I really feel done with it. Like, I don't want to. There was a part of me at some point that felt like I had to kind of let go of the archive. And then there's this option with Issa Rae where there's an old script called Summer Diary that she wrote in 1974 that I really love. And so there are 2 books. There's a book called Whatever Happened to Interracial Love, which is a collection of stories by her that are really about the Sarah character. And it's a really wonderful book. And then there's a second book that's a little more academic called Notes from a Black Woman's Diary, where I published the script of Losing Ground, the script of Summer Diary, because I really like it, 1 play, 1 quartet of 1 acts, some stories, some diary entries, some letters. It's kind of because I felt once the movie came out, I felt like, oh no, people just think she's a filmmaker. So I wanted to do a book that showed the breadth of her work. So anyway, Summer Diary is optioned by Issa Rae. And then interestingly, the writer, very good writer, Angela Flournoy, who's worked on the script, dug up, I sent it to her, but she ended up, as I said, bringing in Almost Music, this other script. So she's written this interesting movie that uses 2 scripts of my mother's. And it's kind of, again, got to kind of play within a play, like this has a movie within a movie. And we'll see if it gets made. I mean, I'm pretty dubious about Hollywood, but we'll see.
Well, Nina, thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.